First of all, we start showing a little video from the FAO institution, FAO. It's the Food and Agriculture Organization from the United Nations. What's happening on an urban scenario today? Are you ready?
Yeah.
Let's go for it.
Where are we heading? If we rethink our cities, we can reshape our future. But cities as we know them are wasteful and often disconnected from the rural areas that sustain them. Cities house 55% of the world's population. They produce 70% of global waste and use 80% of our planet's energy. By 2050, nearly 70% of the world's population will be living in a city. The COVID-19 pandemic has revealed the fragility of our agri-food systems.
To become, people are trying that we shall be happy by becoming materially advanced. That is called Durasaya. That is hope against hope. Nothing vidusartha gating in Vishwa. They do not know that destination of life is to attain Krishna consciousness. No, they do not. They think by increasing motor cars we shall be happy. This is karma. That will not help. This motor car civilization will be finished within another 100 years.
Prabhupada is telling us this motor car civilization will be finished in another 100 years.
John!
Prabhupada is convinced and somebody here is also. But the majority of people don't seem to be convinced about that. You want to say something on that?
Oh, well, Prabhupada said another statement also after that one. He said, in 50 years, this whole Western civilization will collapse.
John.
That's on the recording. It's in my book too, so you can, I put a QR code in the book, and you can use your phone, and you can hear Prabhupada speaking.
Wow, that's
50 years is 2023, from what he said it.
23. What are we looking at? Ukraine, Russia. What are we looking in South Africa? Economical collapse. Kenya is in economical collapse.
UK is collapsing.
UK is facing difficulties. Sri Lanka is in a terrible, difficult situation. Pakistan.
The US is a mess.
The US is a mess. That even rhymes. So this whole global idea is what we're going to explore today. Has this really sorted our problems? I'm going to open today by offering a little bit of our trajectory. I was appointed as a minister for ISKCON in 2015. And my first mentality or thought was, I need to learn what the previous devotees have done. So I went to the seniors and I asked them, what have you done? What is the different directions we need to go? And immediately they told me, you need to visit all the places because for many years, there's an impression that leadership is not so close to this topic. There's so many priorities, this topic doesn't come very easily on their agenda. So you should visit them. So we had a very small budget. I remember I was here in Sri Mayapur. And just to introduce a little bit about myself, my father is a PhD teacher from Cambridge, and he went to ILS in India, in Hyderabad. He was there studying how to take good technologies from India and the world and implement in semi-arid regions in Brazil. So I saw India in that prisma of the 80s, which I'll tell you a little later how it was. I studied agriculture, but then I joined, and then I later finished my graduation, and I joined at ISKCON Farm. And the first thing they saw, hey, you should be helping us. And I did. But as a bhakta, it's very hard to be heard by the leadership, especially when this topic is not so relevant in their agenda, or at least so many priorities. So what happened was, I was in the garden, I remember, just like today, we are very few, and I was doing the gardening for the deities and for the devotees, and saying, why don't we do this more? Isn't it? I'm sure all of you have come to this a little frustration moment. So I just breathed deeply and said, Prabhupada, if only the leaders knew how much your young bhaktas who are close to Mother Nature would like to tell you how much love they have for you, and they like to do it through this activity, but we cannot tell them. So what happened was, 2015, somehow I'm in front of the whole GBC body, and I have to say something. So Krishna, he caught my request, he kept it in the right moment, he put me in front of the GBC body. And here I am in front of my leaders, my heroes, Raghunath Swami, Shivaram Swami, all these great acharyas, Jayapataka Swami, all the swamis and leaders of ISKCON globally were in front of me, and here is someone who came from a farm in Brazil, who's got no disciples, no money. What are you going to tell this awesome audience? Now, I said, okay, so just imagine you're the GBC body and I'm talking to all of you. So I conveyed a very simple message. I said, dear GBC members, I have traveled a little bit for 1 year, and I felt that farmers and devotees working with the land feel that you don't have such a priority for them. So my service will be to tell them that you do, and I am that message of connection. And with that presentation, they thought, hey, that could work. But the budget was very small. So I said, how do I do this? So I decided to continue the European Farm Conference cycle, and we started it, and we went to about all the continents almost. We didn't get to Guyana or Africa and Australia, but otherwise we did 14 continental conferences. North America, Maharaj was one of the presenters there. And we did that because the conferences both brought everybody together, one. Second, brought experts and networks together. And third, paid for my ticket. So since I didn't have any money, it was very handy that we did that. So I got to know all the regions. I was able to make 8 global world tours. And that was a lot of energy. India, Russia, Ukraine, America, Brazil, Europe, back. And then here, Malaysia, Australia, here. And then I was going on and on and on and on. And that was stage which we want to formulate here. What is the need of ISKCON? And then we create a second cycle, which is creating a global team. Hare Krishna to Krishna Prabhu. So honored that you came. We created a global teams rather, and these teams had the goal of networking and connecting with education, which is our third cycle, and all about regenerative agriculture, Mother Earth, and ethical dairy, Mother Cow. How are these interconnected, and how is that relevant for ISKCON devotee who lives in New York? Why should he be part of this? Is it only for farmers? Are we a Varnashram movement or Barn Ashram movement? It can be interchangeable, right? In Bengali, you can say V and B, Brindavan and Vrindavan, Varnashram, Barnashram, only for people in the barn. You know a barn or leaves? No, it's much wider, and it's based on our intrinsic nature and our desires. How can we have a call for that, and how can we have space to use that nature in Krishna service? So all of this was the work done, and it leads to cycle number 3, which is today being presented to you. I announced in the GBC body that I'll talk about this course here at ILS, and this is the report I'm offering. It's our 3rd session, and thank you for coming. Let's go for the next slide. So here we start. With your 2 fingers, he's getting the hang of it. You can just...
No, don't have.
Yes. Okay, so I'm going to introduce this. We are very used to the term Industrial Revolution. And we say, yes, all of this is because of the Industrial Revolution. But the reason the Industrial Revolution was made was not to increase production. That's a byproduct. The real reason to redefine humans. The intention is to redefine humans. In what ways? Prabhu, let's go here. Before you click on it, I'm bringing a term for you. Transhumanism. Research this term on the internet. Transhumanism is a science which is trying to say we all can solve our problems without depending on anyone or anything, just on technology. We humans can transcend nature by our own endeavors. So now we are in a stage of digital transhumanism. It first was by Kant, by Dante, in his plays, he would say this, because there's a search for something beyond. But what is that? Let's click on that. The purpose of which is to overcome the limits of human nature. It's almost like the robots is going to take over, or the sci-fi films. How does that theory, let's look at the background first, very quickly. We had 4 phases. The first one was when we had the mechanization. This is from a Brazilian friend, so Prananat, so that's why it's in Portuguese. First stage, I'm giving the credit to him. First stage is mechanization, which will increase machines. And I'm going to tell a little story about India in this, in the British Empire. The next stage was really exploration. Here's when the British wanted to bring the tractor to India from Canada, Massey Ferguson. Then you went to a stage where the atomic energy came into play, which is making atomic energy available much more to humans. But now we are in the virtual movement where artificial intelligence is playing a gigantic role. Okay? Let's go on to that. So that's the background of where this is coming from. Just with your 2 fingers, you can, yes, fantastic, you got hold of it. Now let's go to agriculture. How does this impact us? Fritz, here's the guy. Fritz was German, and he understood that the war has a lot of leftovers, urea, many other chemicals. Can that be used in agriculture? And the answer was yes. And that started a whole movement of this, let's say, artificial fertilizers and chemical pesticides, which were basically war material leftovers, which they had to do something with it, from the chemical wars and everything. So agriculture became the recipient of those ingredients. Now look at the similarity between machineries. Okay? This is war. It's war against the earth. It's war against the bugs. It's war against the farmers, because only big farmers can survive in many places. It's a war. Agriculture in this system means war. Okay? So let's go, another one. You got it? Just 2 fingers? Yes. We could go into biotech, so many other areas, but you know a lot about this. Let's go to what's interesting. Let's go out of this, and let's bring the concept, one more. Yes. I want to bring another concept. Analog versus digital transhumanism, which is our tradition. We want to transcend the material world, but there's a difference. What is that difference? Let's click on it. Here we see one of our leaders hugging a cow. And why is he doing that? It's just he loves cows because they're a nice animal? Is there anything beyond that? We're going to explore that. If you go to Bhagavad Gita, this verse is telling us a work should be done for Vishnu. And if it's not done, it will cause bondage. We just saw what's happening with this idea of not depending on anyone for that. So if you go to sacrifice, you see that Prabhupada was very much into us doing sacrifice. And what was the most important sacrifice he told us to do? Sankirtan, right? Sankirtan Yagya. That was the most important one. Nevertheless, he did emphasize other sacrifices. Worshipping Mother Cow was there. This is a Go Puja. And I want to bring exactly to the heart of sacrifice. Okay? Prabhupada said, cow protection means feeding the Brahminical culture. So here's a very strong statement. Cow protection means feeding the Brahminical culture, which leads towards God consciousness. Then he concludes, thus, perfection of human civilization is achieved. So he connects cows and civilization, cows and brahmanas, cows and God consciousness. Three things. Very important points. So I'm going to explore only 3 dimensions of the cow. There's so many. It will take a lot of the seminar. Let's go to ghee, okay? If you look at Mahabharata, it says no sacrifice should be performed without ghee. So Prabhupada did so many initiations and yagyas himself, even though Sankirtan yagya is the top yagya, but nevertheless, he kept tradition. And it's a very strong tradition. So ghee is nurturing sacrifice. So mother cow has that potency to nurture. She's a mother. Let's go. Then let's understand Dharma, but I'll take a very narrow definition of Dharma. If you look at Dharma, Prabhupada is saying how the cows nurture the Brahminical culture. Here it is. Dude is bathing the lodges. The dude is feeding the Brahmanas, who develop higher intelligence, understand transcendence, and teach it. Simple. The Brahminical culture understand God consciousness and teach the people. And that's already something Prabhupada stressed a lot, how milk is nurturing the finer tissue of the brain. He, in the Bhagavatam 117.3, he says that milk is the liquid form of Dharma. The liquid form of Dharma. So that's another very important topic which we will explore more and more. How's that? There's a research showing that milk has a substance called DHA, it's amino acid, and that DHA is 60% of our brain. So there's a connection between milk and DHA. And DHA is found in fresh grasses. So when the cow eats fresh grasses, she's taking ample amounts of DHA, which she does not make, but it passes on to humans who then understand God. Okay? Let's go on. And finally, I'm going to get to soil. Okay? This is Sir Albert Howard. Have you ever heard of him before? If you have, raise your hand. So I'm going to, yes, one? You have. Okay, yes, I do speak to him quite a lot. Actually, he's quoted by all the organic farmers speakers, Dr. Vandana Shiva. Why? What did he do? He was sent to India by the Britishers to introduce the tractors in the chemical farming. But he had a problem. Well, first I'll tell about his quality. What was his quality? He was British and he was humble. A rare combination. But very good. If you find these two together, this is a gentleman. I've met so many gentle Britishers. They're the top men. You know, they're so intelligent, so cool. So, Sir Albert Howard had that. So, when he came to teach them that farming, he said, how can I give them that farming if what I'm proposing is half the amount of what they have? The Indian farming system had double the yield that Sir Albert Howard was bringing from the British Empire. So there are many reports of amazing amounts of rice and dal and different beans being produced by the villagers, which is so much greater. So what did he do? He studied and he created the organic movement in the West. He was the father. He went to England and taught that system, went to France in the biological agriculture, which is called the biologique agriculture, which is until today. He went to North America, and there's the Lauderdale Institute for Organic Farming. Until today, it's there. And his friend was in Germany, Rudolf Steiner, who was the biodynamic person who created. So these movements created what we know as organic farming. Let's go on. Wait, before you go on, what did he learn? He learned that the native Indian residents used the cow dung in the most amazing situation. How? The cows are in the backyard, they collect it very carefully, the ladies do that, and the gentlemen carry it to the field. Confirmed. See? Nice style. The bells are ringing. Yes, this is what was happening. So the gentlemen bring it to the field, And therefore, their soils were top because they're nourishing the earth continuously. It was a cycling of residues in the house, in the fields, with the cow dung. So this was all nurturing the soil. Okay, let's go on from that. So here I present for you 3 elements from the cow. There are many, many more. Okay? Now I want you to go to, before we go on there, let's go here to nature. We talked about the cows. Thank you, Prabhu. I'll give a hello to the Vermont Swami that you came by. Hare Krishna. So, nature. Has anybody experienced this? You go away, you don't take care of your pathways, and the grass starts to grow in between the concrete. Has anybody had that experience?
Yes.
Right? It seems annoying. Again. But there's a reason for that. Actually, this is a temple from the time of Tipu Sultan. It was a Jain temple. It was abandoned. And look what happened. This is a full temple. Only a little bit is left. The whole forest destroyed it. The forest just came through, and through the concrete, through the stones, and finished. What is the law? What's happening here? Do you know? Does anybody know?
I guess nature does not stop.
Nature does not stop. Very good point. Any other point? Why does this happen? From a little crack in the concrete to destroy a whole rock temple.
Especially plant matter thrives in a system in which it has to struggle.
Okay, so you're saying that nature faces some difficulties, so it has to create system to overcome that, like a natural system.
Yeah.
Okay, any more ideas?
If you don't interfere with nature, it will regrow.
So you're saying if you don't interfere with nature, there's something there that will regenerate. Okay.
The more greenery actually fixes carbon from the atmosphere to the soil actually. So the greenery is increasing here by nature's arrangement.
So you're saying that nature has a function of fixing carbon. That's a good point. Let's go on because I'd like to talk to you, and so I'll be brief here in this presentation. So you can, yes. One more. One more. You're not doing it with your finger? You're not making it? Okay. The natural law. Prabhupada speaks about the natural law a lot. Let's click on it. So here's the natural law. That's why that grass is breaking. If you see any place which is cut down, the first thing which comes up is grasses. The grasses is the first hairs. Nature is a mother. Nature, the earth, is a female energy. So it's always covered. So if you clean it, green grass covers it again. That's the nature of earth. So the first species with the function to do that is the grasses. So all the grasses come and colonize very quickly. It's called placenta, which means under the earth is very little life, very little microorganism. If you leave it for a year, some bushes come up. Have you seen that on the side of the road, right? So that is called the first of colonization. They're trying to colonize and create life here. If you live for 5 years, a small forest appears. And for 20 years, 40 years, a full forest is grown. So nature is working like this. This is very important. Pay attention to this. This is a principle ISKCON has to understand about Prabhupada, the natural law. Nature works from simple to complex. Repeat with me. Once more. If I ask you another day, how does nature work? So you know that, right? You learned that lesson. Great. Are we working today?
Complex and complex.
We cut the forest to grow grass. We grow wheat, we grow corn, we grow all grasses, corn, wheat, rice, grass for the cows. So we are actually depleting the life which is under the soil. So let's come quickly to energy life. You see, if you take any grass, any plant, it will use 3% of its energy, its physiological energy, and it will transform 10 to 15 surplus. It's syntropic. It's building up. You're getting something. Okay? It's a living soil. And I'll show you what its accumulation, where it's happening. If you use technology, you are burning 70 to 75% of fossil fuels to generate the same 10%. It's a deficit program. Meaning, you put some energy and it's eaten up. Prabhu, but if that's the case, why so many people planting huge farms in Arizona, in Brazil, in Africa? How do you explain that? Genuine question, and I'll show it to you, how it works. It's the concept of uneconomical development. Okay? You produce a microphone, and you say, okay, the microphone costs $100. But if you break it down into iron exploration, plastic production, all the metals, and you try to repair in nature what this microphone costs, really, you might be looking at 500. But because we don't consider that, we just consider where I got it from, how I built it. I bought it for 40 and selling for 100, I'm making money. If I'm making money, it's profitable. But energetically, it's not profitable. Therefore, when you do this, you're going to uneconomical development. Yes, Dr.
We have to grow grains to feed the population,
Right.
and we have to cut to the grass. So how we balance that with the forest and the whole thing?
Excellent question. It's coming in the next slide. Just will hold on. It's a very good question. We need to eat. We don't have labor. We need to use the machine. How do we balance that? Excellent question. We'll come to that. I just wanted to show you a living system accumulates, syntropic. A technological system is entropic. It eats energy. Example, your car. You put petrol, you come here, what happens to the petrol? Finish. You can't have it again. You take one seed, you put on the earth, what happens?
You do 100 seeds.
100 seeds. Again, see, so it's syntropic. So repeat with me. Syntropic. Syn means with. Entropy, life, nature. So with nature, with life. So syntropic, what does it mean? With nature, with life. Okay, so if you hear that term, remember, we need to be more syntropic. We need to work with nature, not against nature. Okay? Great, that slide covered its purpose. Now let's look at community. My second lesson to you today is community. I want to talk to you, so I'll be quick. You see, when we speak about the plant generating energy from the sun through photosynthesis, only 55% is used by the plant. The rest is distributed, food for life, on the root system. Every root has something called rhizosphere, a sphere around the roots. And that sugar is distributed to the bacteria around the roots. Why the bacteria? Who can tell me? Rhizobium, but why does the plant give sugar to the bacteria? Rhizobium, why? To absorb nitrogen. So I'm giving you sugar because you're going to produce nitrogen for me. That's a good direction. Any other direction? Yes?
Because bacteria multiply by getting fed.
Bacteria multiply by having sugar. Good point. What is the main point? We are getting very close.
The bacteria give the nitrogen. Is that it?
You get very close. The bacteria breaks the substance to make nitrogen available. They are the processors of food underneath. And it's a whole community of bacteria, fungi, nematodes. It's a whole community. And they work together. Here's the second lesson. They work together. You see the roots? This plant here is lacking nitrogen. A signal is sent. This plant understands. And the whole chemical is bringing the bacteria for nitrogen right here to feed this plant. They're working together.
One of the main things of the farms, I've been in Brazil, NPKs,
Yes.
I've been brainwashed. But nitrogen, we have to give nitrogen to the land. So when they do this, then what happens to this ecosystem?
When you put the chemical fertilizers, they inhibit microorganisms because they're chemical. So you're not increasing life, you're just making liquid food available. Like if I'm sick, you put here, what is it called on the hospital? IV. An intravenous. IV. So we are putting an IV on the soil and getting a crop and say, hey, success made. But what about life? What about consolidated life down here? That is the problem. Okay, Prabhu, very romantic. We need to feed the world. Next slide, Prabhu. Farming systems. You see, maybe I have less than you. I don't know what's happening here. Well, here is Brasilia in Brazil, Romulo. He studied a system which you plant wood trees like eucalyptus, banana trees, herb trees, so many plants. But he's using his mind, he's using the time. An African mahogany tree will take 20 years to be mature. You don't have to stay 20 years without eating from that place. So he uses the time planting something which will come in 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 1 year, 5 years, living together. And what does he do? Chop and drop. He cuts everything and drops it here. When he does that, all the bacteria come up and there's food. So the system accelerates. Why is this beautiful? Because you can do in 1,000 hectares. You just diminish the amount of species you have in the system. And perhaps the distance of the row. What can you put in the middle? Grains. I can put grass. This can be a grazing system where they can do grazing in the middle of this. So food for the humans, food for the cows. It's a very interesting system that we have to analyze it. Brazil is already making a lot of advancement. There was an article in the magazine Time about this Brazilian agroforestry system. The third term I want you to write down is agroforestry. What did I say?
Agroforestry.
What's agroforestry? Anybody? What is that?
I guess cultivating forests.
Cultivating is a very good idea. You do. You manage using the principles of the forest in a way which is beneficial for humans. It's not just like a forest. You can't manage it. It's too difficult to manage. It's organized. So that's one system. Now, when you look at India, we're going to give a little premium for you. Whoever guesses right gets a prize, okay? Someone, you have your prize ready? The question is simple. What is the average size of a farm in India? Average.
2.5 hectares.
2.5 hectares or acres?
Acres.
Acres. Another one, who can say?
4 kata.
4 kata. 4 kata means like one acre is about 60, so 1/15 of an acre, okay? Anybody else? Come on, make your bet.
7 hectares.
7 hectares, which means 7 times about 15 acres, okay? 15.
Another one. 1 bigger.
1 big is 1/3 of an acre. Okay,
30 kata.
1/3 of an acre.
Actually, it's 0.8 acres, so it's, I think 3 acres.
0.8 acres is about 2.5 acres. Okay, 0.8 acres, okay. Anybody, come on, be courageous, you're gonna get a prize. This prize is a book by Mukunda Maharaj about the cows. He got the instruction from Prabhupada. Some of you already got it, but what is the average size from Columbus? What do you think the average size? Think of a number. No harm. Not yet. 2 acres. Prabhu living, how many acres? He has a phone call, okay. 10 acres. Rasamandala Prabhu did a research about the ashram. He got the precise figure, 2.5 acres. A big round of applause for him. He's a researcher. 2.5 acres, 108 hectares is the number the government says. So for India, we need a system which has to be replicable for 2.5 acre farms. And that's the traditional Indian system, using cow dung and how to do that. And let's go out of that. Let's go out of that. Yeah. Now just go to the main Feed the Earth chart. So, I've given you an introduction. What are the parameters we're looking at? So for India, we need to engage the farmers and work with their land size. So grazing for India is not the best system, because grazing needs 1 acre per cow. So you can imagine. For Vrindavan, that would mean a cost of $10 million just for the land. For Mayapur, more, because the land in Mayapur is so much. So if you want to do a big grazing system for Mayapur, you need to have $10 million to start the land. I'm not talking about structure and everything. But the other system where the cows can graze, which costs less if you engage the farmers. So that's another message. But I really wanted to talk to you before time ran over and hear if you have questions, point of views that we could discuss. Just answer your question, Bhagavatamrita Prabhu. Today, there are plenty of systems which regenerate the soil in large scales. Brazil is one example. It's called plantio direto, direct seedling, where everything is machine-made, but the soil is always covered. So at least they got one point right. And also you have in Germany the organic and biodynamic farming, which you can do a large field in a way that you're feeding the soil. America is also making progress on that. So the world is thinking how to do it, but we're still too dependent on NPK. When Russia said no more NPK, there was a crisis in Sri Lanka. Who mentioned Sri Lanka? They decided to go organic from day to night. Complete disaster. It doesn't happen like that. It has to be planned. So we're still too dependent. Atu Krishna people.
Around Mayapur, let's say, not considering ISKCON and ISKCON's land and ISKCON's influence, but in terms of the local people farming, how much are they influenced by, your synthetic, what are they called?
Fertilizers.
Yeah, fertilizers and all that. And how much, you mentioned about the British gentry, you were so impressed by the natural systems. So how much of that natural organic systems is present or in the local...
In India, in our, let's say, neighborhood.
Yeah.
You see, I was once buying seedlings for my small garden, and there was a loudspeaker. And the loudspeaker was trying to sell some chemical pesticides. And he was using this motto. He's saying like, if you have a problem, someone translates from Bengali, with this bug, I have this problem, I have this product. If you have a problem with this bug, I have this problem. But if you can also mix all, it's more potent. So the farmer was not only using as he wanted it, without a prescription from an agronomist, he was mixing the thing and spraying. So India is in a situation of challenge because there's a lot of food poisoning going on. How much are they influenced? They are on the verge of decision. If we work with them, there's a chance. Hare Krishna Prabhu. Swagatam. Thank you for coming. You're the next speaker? Okay. So, Prabhu is a great support in the UK for our project of cow protection. So, in Mayapur, if we have a consistent system like they have a Govardhan Eco Village, that can still be achieved. Because it's not too far out, the traditional knowledge, that we could reverse. I personally experienced, we planted rice here, minicat rice. We got a better yield than the chemical farming. And the farmers were looking at our place, saying, hey, it's possible. We just need to apply to it. If we apply to it, it's possible. Yes?
Just one question. What are the problems for scaling up in a more sustainable way and reachable way and make more production that reach more people? And right now it's small farms, small ideas. So how do we scale this up and become, systemic everywhere?
Yes. How many more minutes do we have? It's okay. 12:30 presentation, right, Prabhu? So we can actually disconnect if Prabhu at one point you want to come and install the computers, feel free. Just this is a rich moment of our conversation, the discussion. What is the struggle to become regenerative? In India, land price. Okay? You can't do big lands, you have to do small. So the challenge is you have to work with many millions of farmers. So the government's been trying, investing money in India, but there's not enough consolidated organic knowledge from the past to implement it. So the government is trying, but is finding it difficult to find a system which has an appeal for all. In the West, manpower. There's no manpower. And then how to I give you an example. One devotee farmer from Germany called Robert, he came here, he's got 300 hectares in Germany. And Robert told me his father was doing chemical. He got 2,000 tons of grains per year. he decided to go organic, he got less production. He's working with something like 1,000 tons, like half. It's enough, he says, it's enough for me, I can live very well. But it takes that learning curve of bringing experts, technology, finding the markets. So from the farmer's perspective, the challenge is market, technologies, having it available when he needs it, and manpower. For a leader, the challenge is really finding the right people who can give you what you want on a large scale. Because organic farming has been guided to small farm foods. This method I showed you is making history in Brazil because they can work with 10,000 hectares. A whole eucalyptus farm, which is regenerative. Grass, eucalyptus, and fruit crops.
Is that the thought in there? That's the thought.
This is a Brazilian system. It's also regenerative. It's a monocrop. It's wood, grass, and cows. That's an ecosystem which can be regenerative. If you put more biodiversity down here, it becomes a perfect system. Instead of just one type of tree, many different types. It becomes much better. And then you can recycle your grains. The cows can graze the land, can fertilize the land. That works, because land in Brazil is still very cheap. In America, in different places. So, your question is very important. Why is it important to think about this? ISKCON today has 11,560 acres of land as registered in our directory. By the way, we have registered all the farms in ISKCON in a directory. You can access that, right? Yeah, you're going to get some materials, which is going to be given at the back. All please take and distribute. And all of these farms together answer for 11,000 acres. Just think from a leadership perspective. Now I'm talking to Prabhu. If we think, as an institution, we're going to decide to help 1,000 acres of forest in different plots, this could generate 100 million euros in 20 years. So from a managerial perspective, if you look at all these lands, we could say, look, let's do agroforestry intelligently. In 20 years, we have the capital to do all the farming we need in ISKCON. And that's one idea. There are hundreds of ideas with farming, with can be done.
One last question, real quick. Is it true that if I have a chemical fertilization and then I go to organic, the curve will go down a little bit, but then it starts going slowly up over a period of time?
No, it depends very much on your farming system. There is a decrease, obviously, but depending on how much fertilization you put, then that is not necessarily a long time. But it does take some time to go with. But once it's there, it stays. The difference with chemical, every year you have to do it again. I'd like to end on a sweet note, and my sweet note to you is, the ministry now has finished its 8-year work plan. We have traveled extensively to all directions, and we're going to launch an educational course. And that course may interest you, because all these ideas are going to be flashed out. We have more than 100 topics: organic olive oil production, bamboo production, wheat production. We have talked of engaging the oxen, understanding your earth, Vastu Shastra, community design, making the blueprint. All these topics have been collected in this conference, and now they're going to come out as education. So you may be interested into that, and that's the purpose of this presentation today. Yes, this is it. This is it. Regenerative. We have to think about it, minimize our mechanization. We want to maximize diversity of crops. We want to keep the soil covered as much as we can. We want to maintain the roots in permanent system as much as we can. And we want to integrate livestock. This is a good template to work with. And then we're going to have a course directed to Goseva, which means how to take care of cows, how to run a goshala, what are the different elements, how to integrate grazing into your goshala, and it's okay. And then the foundational course is really like why we do this, why Prabhupada wanted us to work on this topic. And that for me is really the mission of ISKCON, to tell us why we need to do this. from a thinking process, and some will do the how, to apply the forms. I think we have to stop because the next speakers will come. We'll stay here for a long time. I love your presence here. If anybody wants to ask me a question, I'll be outside. And there is some bags which you're going to distribute, right? Someone, is he there or is it you? At the back, we're giving some bags for all of you. Please take the bags. There is some materials for you. Don't leave without your bag. It's a present for you. Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much. Shall we meet outside?